Hello everybody, my name's Miriam Divine and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the origins of Hecate, and her origins are very much shrouded in mystery because they're not spelled out in the Greek or any of the other writings that were translated. And so there's this mystery. And of course the other writings, we have the Chaldean oracles and the Greek magic proprietary, and of course the Ephoric hymns where she shows up in the very first thing, but they don't talk about her origins like they do like Aphrodite or any of the other gods and goddesses. And she's definitely a primordial goddess. If you look through the the things in primordial, meaning ancient Greek, before the with the Titans versus Zeus and all of them, that you have this big war according to the Greek mythology, that she was there before then. She was there, and they don't talk about where she comes from. And if you really understand where a lot of the Greek gods and goddesses come from, you see that when, I believe, Alexander the Great and the conquerors go out and start conquering all these regions around them, up into the different regions, they bring back all this information and then write it into gods and goddesses. Because if you look, ancient Sumerian, really, Inanna gets eventually rewritten into Aphrodite and Venus and all of them. So you've got to assume that Hecate was very similar. When they conquered these regions, and they really push, they think, because it's not written down, that Hecate was right there in that, where her temple is today. If you look up the Ghana region, whatever, she has a temple there. That's her biggest temple in the world, and that's where the ruins are. But she's in that Antalya region, and it wasn't called that back then, of course. But she was in that region area where she kind of is guessed. And my personal views are that she was oral tradition. She was an oral story in that area that, of course, when the Greeks conquer, they don't care whether it's oral tradition or other traditions. They just bring it back. Like a lot of like the snake goddess and stuff comes out of that area where they did a lot of worship on snakes and things. But they bring it back and talk about it. And she eventually falls into the Greek culture as this liminal goddess, which she probably was liminal before. And especially if you look into the Zeus tales, she was definitely liminal, because Zeus couldn't trap her in Tartarus, why he actually had to enlist her help, because she was unprisonable down there, because she travels between, the upper world, the middle world, which is us, the upper world, of course, being heavens, and the lower world being Tartarus, or the underworld, or the H word, right? I don't like that because it's a modern Christian thing. But you get this concept where she travels between them, and actually exists in the liminal, kind of slightly outside of those. And she can travel between them. Well, you can't trap somebody who can transition between them, where she has this ability to not get trapped into Tartarus via ecstasy. And that's kind of how they are trapped down there. They're trapped via ecstasy in this place where they're stuck in their own bliss in that area. So we have this concept that she was definitely primordial, because she was predates into, and she's in the Titan area, but she doesn't have any written tradition like any of the others that come out. Now, I'm hoping that someday they'll find, ancient documents in her temple or elsewhere that actually gives us more information. If you understand how gods and goddesses really come about and how spirits really exist, it's kind of more of a left-handed path theory, that they were actual physical beings somewhere down the line that walked on the earth. And they were like a Buddha or something, reincarnated into a physical being, because they probably existed pre-flood civilization. And I'm not going to go back there to, Atlantis and pre-flood, or, back at the birth of the world, or back into before she was around. Honestly, most of the gods and goddesses, and a lot of us, especially really magical people, existed before Earth even existed. But we're not going to go back in that dates of history with her. We're just going to go into this modern world. So we don't, because there's actually a little bit of writing, and there's nothing predates this. So, in pre-flood civilization that we've really dug up and found a lot. So we have this ascended master concept, right? And she comes about, in my theory, she became an oral tradition, and she physically walked and was a very magical person, similar to like the other gods and gods, very magical. And somewhere between maybe 4,500 to 3,000 BC, somewhere in that range, she existed and walked on the planet. And she was a high priestess or something like that. And people worshipped her as this magical being because she could do magical things that regular people just didn't understand and couldn't do. And maybe in modern society you might be able to explain some of the magic, maybe not, with modern Qi Gong and stuff like that. She could do things. And so she became an oral tradition of the people. And as you see, when she gets into Greek rewrite into things, she becomes this very personal, works with you one-on-one type of goddess, where she becomes a liminal space goddess, where she exists on, the entranceway into many temples of other gods and goddesses as the entrance point into that magical realm of their temple space. And so as you'll see, a lot of times her symbols and stuff are adorned on their doorways. Or regular individuals' homes, she had a lot of, her representations was on their doorway. The lintel going in, they had her depictions. Or she was worshipped at crossroads where roads met. And a lot of times on the new moon, which is a very liminal time, she was worshipped out at the crossroads. People left offerings and things like that. And offerings and stuff come into this, how gods and goddesses and spirits actually exist. And what it is we as people, we eat food, we drink liquids, and take stuff from Mother Earth, put it into our bodies, and our bodies translate it into our existence. So if you say you eat, a taco, you eat that taco, you eventually become part of that taco. And of course, the taco came from corn, which eventually grew from the earth and the sun, and minerals and stuff from around. And of course, you eat, the beef in the taco if you had it, or chicken taco, or a veggie taco, whatever you had. It doesn't really matter. That earth becomes part of you, and you exist. And that's how we exist in this realm, and that's how our bodies exist. Well, spirits, whether they existed in our realm or not, which I think a lot of them did, and some of them didn't, but they need substance. They don't eat tacos like we do. They don't eat food. They take energy, because that's what you need to exist, is energy, and they use that energy to maintain, grow, or whatever in the spiritual sense. And there's many different ways of doing it. You can do it like a demon or something like an energy vampire and actually create a sense of emotion, because emotions aggravate energy, and then the demon, of course, eats that energy off of you. Like if they make you scared, and they eat fear, right? Not all demons do it that way, but I'm just giving you an example. So, and that's how they take it off of the living. Do you have to do it off the living? No, you can actually, a spirit can actually eat another spirit and all that kind of stuff. It kind of gets a little gruesome on the other side, but that's how energy exists. Now, there's another way energy can be transmuted, and that's if someone gives it to you willingly, such as, say, a devotee towards a god, a goddess, another human being, or whatever. You can give your energy to them via prayer, via, offerings. You can actually take the essence of, say, barley and open a portal and give that essence of barley to a god or goddess, and that's where libations and offerings and stuff come. And if you read, texts, of course they did these sacrifices and stuff, and people don't do that type of sacrifice anymore. At least I hope they don't. I don't. So there's this different way of giving offerings and energy to spirits. And so, and of course, the big C one, Christian one or whatever, they have we're going to all die and go give laments and endless prayers to this God who basically takes that prayer energy to subside on. That's just, and you do it in modern, you do it in waking life, you can do it in the death life, whatever. That's how it works. So we have this today, this day and age. Hecate, of course, was very personal back in the day, and people prayed to her and gave her offerings and stuff. But then she kind of gets forgotten because she doesn't make it through the rewrites. Obviously, when, obviously I mean like they didn't write her easily, like they wrote Jupiter and Pluto and all these gods when the Romans rewrite it, she kind of gets left out because she was just oral tradition mostly. She didn't have actual big role because she was oral. And so she doesn't get rewritten. And then eventually people start just rediscovering this ancient magical Greek goddess, and they start giving her energy again. And that's why she starts coming back up in the modern age that we have today, where people are starting to become devotees again. There's a lot of witchcraft involving with her if you look into the magical side, but she's way more than all of this magical doings that we have out there today. So that's kind of the origins of Hecate. She walked the earth somewhere, at least my view. She walks the earth. She's a magical goddess. Of course, she becomes an ascended master or an ascended mistress. I don't know how you want to put it. Who cares? And she becomes a spiritual being. And then people start giving prayers to her and creating her into this goddess. And then oral tradition, because it's not written, it's all oral, she eventually makes it to the primordial and the Greek cultures as after they suck her in from their conquering and bringing in all these religions, because Alexander wanted to create a giant library. Think about it. He wanted to create all this information. But in oral tradition, she gets lost over time and only appears in snippets and all these different things like the Chidal and the Four Hymns and the Greek magical variety. She has just little snippets. And then people start saying, well, what's these snippets? And it becomes this mystery and this draw, and people start giving her energy again. And that's where she's coming up in the modern age on how she's being revitalized. Did she ever really go anywhere? No, of course not. She may have just existed for a little bit, and she was very unknown, and now she's becoming known again, which is nice, at least for people, especially people like me who actually are a Hecatean devotee. She's starting to revitalize. Now, like I said, did she exist before our modern, post-flood civilization? Of course she did. In my own personal looking at her, she pre-existed before the earth existed. She was around, and, can I say it? Okay, she says, yes, I can mention it here in this video. I personally think she was a black hole energy. And she used to devour planets way, way before the Earth ever even was around. And eventually, like stars and stuff, as they call star seeds, you were once a star and your energy gets, sucked in and you become part of different worlds in existence. And eventually you become part of Earth. So that gets really way out there. And of course she was formed, on the Earth during the time of the great break between the heavens and the hells and the earth when that occurs. So, but in the modern sense, this post-flood civilization, she remanifests and coalesces into this ascended master and eventually becomes Hecate in our thing. And honestly, Hecate is probably not even pronounced right, because that's a Greek writing and that's a modern saying of Hecate. It's probably, because I'll post it up here, the actual Greek spelling, but it's actually probably Hecate or maybe even, without the H, because I think the E is silent. But that's how I kind of look at it. So that's my rendition of the origins of Hecate. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have disagreements with my viewpoint because it's my viewpoint, not everybody else's. So if you want to post your own viewpoint below, please write a comment. Write a book down in the comments if you want to about the truth, or even make a compendium video of this is why I'm wrong. This is what I think it is. That's fine. But like and subscribe for more videos like this one. And I will see you in my next upcoming video. I love you all. Bye.